Hey guys, welcome back. I'm your host Andy, and today I will be looking at just imagine Stan Lee's JLA, or maybe let's not imagine. Um, this is a very disappointing project, I must say, and the reason for that is the characters, the imagining of the characters by Stan Lee. Now, I think this particular project is a very good example of showing that even comic book industry legends don't always turn everything to gold. You know, everyone has a bad day. Everyone. I don't care who you are. You're not going to have success in everything that you do. I mean, you might have commercial success, but that doesn't mean that what you churn out is necessarily good. The characters in JLA or Stan Lee's JLA are prime examples of what happens when you have a Marvel legend come in and try his hand at DC characters. I mean, to be completely fair, when I picked up this particular comic book, I was expecting great things. I really was. Even though when I saw the cover and I saw the characters and I saw Batman in particular, I mean Batman, the guy who looks like the Bat, obviously, um, that should have given me warning signs, and I guess my spidey sense kicked off a little bit. But even then, I gave Stan the benefit of the doubt. Until of course I opened it up and I started reading. And look, people may disagree with me. They may do. Sorry, that's my laptop ringing off in the background. My apologies. Anyhow, let's continue. I mean, briefly, I'll give you a description of the characters as reimagined by Stan Lee. So Batman is Wayne Williams instead of Bruce Wayne, whereas we know Bruce Wayne to be a Caucasian chap, a multi-billionaire. Wayne Williams is African American. Um, he's in excellent physical condition, manages to maintain a quite a vast personal fortune, and so he has these custom equipment made for him, like night vision lenses, costume made of Kevlar, you know, things that basically help him in his fight against crime. He's got a wingsuit, hang glider thing going on with the cape, allows him to float down. Now with Wayne, his father was a policeman who was killed in an ambush, and Williams is later framed for a crime and vows revenge on Hans, who's a gang leader who basically set him up. In prison, Williams befriends a scientist named Frederick Grant, who teaches him how to develop his mind, as well as his body. When he comes out of prison, he needs the money, so he goes and joins a wrestling federation and takes up wrestling, becomes a superstar in the process, and starts making lots of money, gets a personal fortune to help him, obviously, in his fight against crime. And after he defeats Hans, the gang leader who set him up, he basically decides to become the Batman and fight crime. Then you have Wonder Woman, whose name is Maria Mendoza. Maria is an activist who protests against the corporate excavation of an ancient Incan holy site. She happens to find the staff of this deity, this Incan sun god called Manco Capac, and that basically grants her superpowers, and she names herself Wonder Woman. This chap over here is Superman, who's a Kryptonian by the name of Selden or Selden, Salden, Selden. Um, he's basically a police officer in the Kryptonian police force. Whilst chasing a criminal on Krypton, they both get teleported to Earth, where Selden discovers that he's got superpowers, including super strength and super speed, and he decides to call himself Superman and to help the help the Earth. Then there's Green Lantern, who looks like Dr. Manhattan, but no, he's Green Lantern because he's got a lantern on his chest and he's green. Green Lantern's real name is Len Lewis. He's a professor who was looking for something called the tree, which is basically the Norse legendary tree Yggdrasil. And he goes to Africa, where he finds the tree. But when he gets there, when he finds the tree, he's shot dead by some evil priest, evil leader of some church, who shoots him, leaves him for dead. But the tree gives this professor powers, superpowers, to serve as a lantern, a beacon of hope in the dark times. And then there is the Flash, whose real name is Mary Maxwell, who's a college student, whose father happens to be a scientist. She has a life-threatening disease that slowly drains her energy, and one day, enemies of her father's, who are part of an organization named Stealth, which stands for the Special Team of Espionage Agents licensed to target and hit, they find him and they kill him. But before he dies, he injects Mary with the DNA of a hummingbird to save her from her wasting disease, and she gets these super speed powers and calls herself the Flash. And yeah, that's the Flash, yeah. Now, straight away, these origin stories really just, I don't know, they suck. I mean, the origin stories of the original DC characters, they had a certain majesty to them, a certain panache. Really, really made you invested in the character. But these origin stories, these characters, just, I don't know. Did Stan genuinely come on this project with a view to trying his best to do these characters justice, or was Stan thinking, I don't know, but was he thinking that, look, I don't even like DC that much, and there's no way these characters are going to beat my characters back at Marvel, so let's show the guys what we really think about DC characters and just make them as rubbish as possible. I don't know. Maybe this is Stan as he was definitely trying his best, but this Batman looks ridiculous. This Superman, they all look ridiculous. But anyway, let's open the book. So in this book, they get to fight some iconic characters from DC who have also been changed a little bit. You've got Deathstroke, who is a tubby chap whose hands are lethal, and if he touches you, you die. You've got Parasite, who's the flying lady who can fly, and if she touches you, she obviously drains your powers. And then you've got Blockbuster, that chap over there, who has super strength and invulnerability. And yeah, they look different. By the way, the art in this book is by Jerry Ordway, who I'm a fan of. I think Jerry Ordway is a great artist, one of the greats, no doubt, and did a lot of work for DC. I can only imagine what he was thinking when he was drawing these characters, because he had a long stretch on Superman. Jerry Ordway did a lot of work on Superman, and did some very fine work on Superman. So when he was drawing this Superman, yeah, I like to think he enjoyed himself, but if he felt anything like I'm feeling right now, he probably thought, what the hell am I doing? I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but that's what I'm thinking right now. By the way, an interesting point to note here is that these characters combined, these supervillains call themselves the Doom Patrol. And I mean, who would have guessed? Who would have thought that they would take such an iconic, legendary name like the Doom Patrol and they'd make these people the Doom Patrol? Anyway, this just gets better and better. I'm being sarcastic. It just gets better and better as we go through. I guess the purpose of this episode is not so much about going through or explaining the full story of this particular comic book. Rather, it's more about looking at these characters and trying to understand what Stan's thought process was at the time. Because, I mean, there's no doubt about it. Stan has created some amazing characters in his time, no doubt, no doubt. I mean, I say created, he of course, he co-created a lot of characters. I mean, characters like Spider-Man, Hulk, Silver Surfer, Daredevil, Doctor Doom, Doctor Strange, Iron Man, all absolutely great characters in Marvel. And look, in their own right, again, that word that I used, that, the majesty of these characters, the nobility of these characters. There's something to be said, something positive to be said about all those characters. When you read these characters, they make you feel inspired, they make you feel good. And then when you read these characters, well, for me personally, I just felt let down, dismayed. I mean, depressed is too strong a word. And look, it's just fiction. It's a comic book. I understand. It's just, you grow up with characters, right? You grow up with characters and you have this certain idea about them. And then you have this comic book legend, Stan Lee, reimagining those characters. You can only think is going to be good. What comes out, and then it comes out to be this. And the disappointment, man, it's a low. It really is. Hits you hard. One of the disappointments that I was mentioning is, and again, this lack of nobility of the character is in relation to Superman. And I mean, let's just have a look at how he talks, shall we? What's with your fur face? I save you from being crushed, and you tell me to watch it. Okay, I mean, Superman would never, ever, ever speak like that. But this one does. And then Batman, let's see how he talks. Watch it, man. You almost decked me too. I don't know, call me crazy, but I just think that Batman's always been too, what's the word? Dignified? He's always been too much of a dignified, cool, stoic character to come out with these absolute nuggets of gold. But Stan didn't think so, clearly. Stan didn't think so. Stan had different ideas, and obviously we see that on paper here. So anyway, that's a good rendition. Actually, I mean, that looks pretty okay. At least the Batman over here looks pretty impressive. Quite good, quite good. Still, it's not the Batman that we know. But it's, I mean, it could be a different character. They could call it they can't call it Man-Bat. Man-Bat already exists. And we have a character like this in DC called Man-Bat who actually looks very much like this. And I prefer Man-Bat, to be completely honest. I guess having seen what Stan has done with these DC characters, it's made me realize that there are very, very significant differences between, I suppose, the audience of DC and the audience of Marvel. I mean, I think that you can like both, definitely. But can you like both equally? Can you, as a comic book fan, like Marvel characters and DC characters equally? And I'm gonna throw a wild one here. I'm going to say that no, I don't think you can. I think that when you're young, and I'm talking like when you're a child, when you're a kid, you already have it put in you. You've already absorbed the comics that are out there, and you've already made up your mind as to which comic company suits your tastes better. For me, when I was growing up, I have to confess it was DC. But I did slowly get into Marvel also, and I appreciate both. I really do. I have as much love, I would say, for Marvel now as I do for DC. But I can never forget that my first love, in terms of characters, in terms of what the company churned forth, what their ethos was, what their mood was more DC than it was Marvel. And that means that the character, what that means that the creators, uh, in each company, the thought process that goes on in each company is very, very different. That's not to say that you don't have dark stories in Marvel comics, or that you don't have light stories or funny stories in DC. I think you can find either of each. And in fact, I mean, if you look at, there's a lot of darkness in Marvel as well. Of course, I mean, the Spider-Man's origin story. The death of Uncle Ben, the death of Gwen Stacy. He's living with his frail old aunt. He's got troubles, and equally, of course, with DC, with Batman character, you've got Batman, of course, a tragic origin to be sure. His mum and dad get killed in front of him. He spends a life of solitude. He dons a cape, a cowl, sorry, a cowl and a cloak, and goes around fighting crime for the rest of his life. I mean, these are all tragic things. I mean, Superman, I suppose, has a tragic beginning also. His parents die, his entire planet blows up, and then he goes to live, on planet Earth on a farm with John and Martha Kent. But of course, things work out better for him. So there's light and tragedy in each of the company's origin stories. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that from my reading of the comic books, it seems to be, I mean, I could be wrong, but it seems to be that DC DC characters are a lot more, they appear to be, or they come off as a little bit more sophisticated, in terms of their engineering, as it were. I mean, the stories aren't always sophisticated, of course not, and it depends on who the writer is. But the idea of the character is quite sophisticated, and the idea with Marvel, I suppose, is less so. Or maybe I'm just rambling here. I could be completely wrong. It's just I think this particular comic book has messed me up so much that I'm perhaps I'm getting phased. Um, I guess it comes down to who has the most iconic characters of all time, historically speaking. I would have to say that it has to be Superman and Batman, and they are, of course, eminent DC characters. I mean, of course, you have the Hulk, you have Iron Man, you have Thor, you have Wolverine, you have all these amazing MCU characters, and I've touched upon this before. The MCU has done amazing work for Marvel characters, no doubt. But at the end of the day, um, I think that Superman, Batman are the original superheroes who basically went from comics into mainstream media, such as radio plays and television, etc., etc. First, and I think they've had the most impact. And I think that will always be the case, that the most recognizable characters will be Superman and Batman. Yes, you've got the MCU right now, but I think the star of MCU will eventually wane. It'll start, sinking as the years go by. One of the reasons I say that is because let's look at Harry Potter. You don't hear about it as much, even though it was nowadays. I mean, you do in terms of merchandise, but not so much in terms of the huge phenomena it was, decades back. Or the Twilight Saga. Twilight, with the glittering vampires and whatnot, and the werewolves, etc., etc. When it came out, was huge. It was absolutely huge. But who talks about it anymore right now? I don't think anyone does. I think it's been relegated to the storage room of history. Yes, people will still remember it, but they certainly won't have the same passion for it that they did before. I think it's the same with MCU and their characters. I mean, yes, they're great, they're very cool, but at the end of the day, I think that DC will still be remembered as having the most iconic characters in Batman and Superman. And yeah, I think that what's happened with this reinterpretation, this reimagining by Stan Lee has been a bit of a disappointment. But maybe Stan was having a bad day, or maybe I was having a bad day when I was reading this. I don't know, guys. What do you think? Am I completely wrong? Please feel free to comment. Let me know if you think I've lost the plot. Um, I'd be happy to receive your feedback. And as ever, listen, thanks very much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. It would be great if you could press the like button and subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. All right, take care.